All right, so there's this thing that can happen on your spiritual journey, and maybe it's happened to you, is that when you start out, or you've had some insight, or you've taken some courses, what can happen is a beautiful feeling arises. I call this, you're feeling the juice of spirituality, and this can last for a long time, years. And then what can happen sometimes is that feeling goes away, just inexplicably, it disappears, and is left with a feeling of aridity, dryness. So why am I talking about that today? Because what I'm feeling at myself right now, and one of my practices is to be with what is present. And so I'm speaking from that place of being present with the arising of that arid feeling where everything lacks flavor, don't know what to do, doubts arise again, and underneath is a feeling of like, why bother? So this message is for you if you feel anything like this or have felt this. Now this can also arise because of events of the world, which right now are quite crazy, so that would drive anybody to this. But also there's mostly an inner process that happens. So I want to share some pointers with you about this, so that if it happens to you, you don't think you're going crazy. In a way you are going crazy, but it's a good kind of crazy. So look at it this way, the idea of the dark night of the soul. So here, the dark night of the soul is a term that's often used, probably more than it should be, and sometimes to refer to like an extended period of the blues. So while one can use that as the dark night, a dark night, people say, oh, I've been going through a dark night. What they're really saying is that they are having an extended period of blues, stroke, depression, because of an event, divorce, loss of income, job, money, things like that. Here the thing is, it's brought by the outside world. It's a reaction to something that has happened in the outer world. So then I would classify really as just the blues. So it doesn't matter that we make this classification. No, not really, but it does if you are on a serious spiritual journey, because you'll want to separate out what is the normal blues from what is a dark night of the soul experience. The one is brought on by circumstance, and the other one is a mystical inner experience. So the mystical inner experience. So just say your blues is brought, it might be triggered by something in the outside world, but you know that it's not really about that. It goes deeper. It's this dryness. It's like, wow, you thought you were doing so well, and you felt the love and connection and God, or however it was for you, and it dries up. Where did it go? Have you lost contact with your guides? Where did they go to? Maybe you even stopped believing in guides and God and anything of value. It's just disappeared. So St. John of the Cross, who is that mystic, Catholic mystic from the Middle Ages, who coined the term dark night of the soul, because on his spiritual journey, that's what he went through, and his description of it is aridity, like a dryness that arrives. So years of prayer and meditation brought first the juice, the love of God, and then it dries up. So that causes great confusion. They can go on for a long time. So what his insight is that it is a mystical inner process that has its own timing, its own life. So I want to share something with you about how to manage that and what's really going on. So what happens in this aridity, the reason why it's dry, according to me, and perhaps some others, is that think of it in terms of your bodies, your physical bodies, your spiritual bodies. You've got a gross physical body. Then around that is your energy field. We call that the subtle body. So that is your emotions, it's the chakras. If you do yoga and qigong and these things, it's all to do with your subtle body. It's semi-physical, and it extends right up to your kind of higher mind, higher rational mind. So anything in that sphere that's immediately around you, of feelings, emotions, energy, and mind, thought, both sort of gross thought and higher thought. your subtle body. Now in there is where the juicy feeling of spirituality sits. This is also equates to now your dreaming state. So gross body is your waking state. Subtle body equates to dreaming state, but doesn't mean that you have to be asleep for it. You're in touch with your subtle body when you're awake and doing yoga or energy exercise or chakra, all that stuff, or thinking or feeling or doing law of attraction, whatever. It's also there if you are having a mystic experience on your spiritual path, like a nature experience or God or however you perceive it. But there's the juice. That juice is a sign of, at first, there's a sign of subtle body feelings. It's the home of your feelings, and also the very subtle ones that come in from high levels. So one explanation is of the dark night experience is that you've journeyed through that subtle level and have now entered the next level. But because it sounds familiar, most spiritual practices don't teach this. They don't know what it is. And we call this the causal level. It's very much about the now. The thing about the causal level, and this comes from Vedanta and various Eastern philosophies, mapped this out a long time ago. The causal body is also known as the body of ignorance. And it's done so because in the causal body, when you operate from causal, it equates to deep dreamless sleep. So imagine if you're awake, but your consciousness is of deep dreamless sleep. So there's nothing much happening. It seems like nothing is happening. There can be a sense of great stillness, peace and stillness primarily, stillness, and not knowing, which is fine in themselves. But sometimes it can strike you, especially if you get thrown into it quickly, or if it descends on you rapidly. The not knowing aspect of it is what you sense most. It's like the blankness. So the aridity is to do with the blankness, or the ungraspability of that causal dimension. So now instead of panicking and saying, oh no, I've lost God, I've lost contact with what I dearly love, my spiritual path, I no longer feel like doing things, consider perhaps that this is in fact an initiation, and there's a dark night experience, which dark nights, the mystical dark nights, are always initiatory. And they can last for quite a while. So have the idea that you are stepping into the causal realm. So this helps to reframe it, to say it's not you haven't lost God, it's just God has prepared you for the next step. And I say God, but it's like you know what it means. It's like your whole universe field. And John of the Cross spoke often of this, of how in the beginning in your path you might torture yourself to try and in those days it was like you'd do penances or whip yourself or something, or starve yourself or something to get close to God. And in that denying of the self you would have visions and whatnot. That's fine for a while because you get the juice. Then John of the Cross says what happens is that the juice goes away, and now you're no longer in control of your privations. Now God takes control of that. So now it can get worse because you're not in control. So for us in modern day, the subtle would be strict, hectic therapies. You go to therapy to work on your issues. You can work for years on your issues, make a little bit of progress, but it's not going to release you. For a while it'll feel good, but then it'll start to also get dry because you've reached the end of it. Most spiritual practice, you see people going to medicine retreats, ayahuasca and whatnot. Sometimes they can have a breakthrough into causal, but then you get people go again and again and again and again, still searching for something. It's not happening. They're cycling back in the subtle body, in the dream body. The dream is continuing there. What they need to do is actually stop. So what part of the medicine is actually stop. So when you're feeling the dryness of the causal, that is a sign to stop everything you've been doing, to stop. And then rest into that apparent nothingness. And know that that is your home for now, for the next phase of the journey. And you can go in and out of causal to subtle. But once you've been into causal, you'll know that everything in subtle it's tempting, it's nice, but it's a little bit distracting because it can hold your attention there. And you can be lost, almost lost in the fun ground. It's still part of the matrix. You don't want to be kept too long in the matrix. And another practice I recommend, then first stop and then turn towards your source. Now the causal level is also the level of I am, simply your I am presence. And knowing I am. So right now you know that you exist. How do you know you exist? You will just know. You'll say, I exist. How? I know. Why? Because you go to the knowing. So it's to do with knowing. The pure knowing without objects. It's going to feel dry at first because it's not knowing anything. It's not having experience, not me in a beautiful world, me and God, or me and angels and archangels and all that lovely tinsel. It's just you straight up with knowing. I am. Full stop. So the mind freaks out a bit because there's nothing else it can see. No juice. So here your practice will be to go more into the I am. So you can dwell in the I am present, just the awareness of existence. Go to your knowing. How do you know? How do I know I exist? I just know, and you go to that knowing place. And there you hang out. That's your new home. It's very profound practice. Eckhart Tolle, of course, talks a lot from there. Not always very precise on how to be in it when it feels not so great. Although he does cover it, but I want to be specific here to say go almost with a discipline and tune into that I am presence with nothing else added, just that. If you're into non-duality teachings, Rupert Spira, he will talk a lot about this. So anything you listen to him would be here. He might even talk from a more next level up, which is non-dual. So I liken the causal to, it's like your first doorway into the non-dual world. It's non-duality. Not full non-duality, because that is, instead of I am, causal is I am. Full non-duality is the next level up, which would be I, just pure awareness of I. And then the love can shine again, because now I knows it's loving itself. So it's a cosmic love that comes back in without subject and object. And the causal, you get shocked because you start to doubt, or the user subject and love object disappears. So you say, oh my God, I've lost love. God is trying to say to you, go back to yourself, go back to your knowing I am, because you are the ever subject. So like a circle, almost turn back on yourself. You are all of it. That is frightening to the mind. The mind doesn't get traction there. But you've got to go deeper into it. I am. And that can be a practice. And sometimes you've got to do that for a while, years. And you can still bounce in and out. We will talk more about this. So stay tuned if you're interested in it. I just wanted to give you a brief map, it's turned into a longer one, that if you're on this aridity, don't worry, it's the causal level. There's also another level higher up called the great causal or non-dual. There can also be another dark night experience. So in fact, it's a good thing when you have the aridity that's not really created by any outside circumstances, brought from the weirdness of the world, but this goes deeper. Then just sit with it and do your I am practice. Watch non-duality teachers. Mostly just practice sitting with I am, finding that I am, and being okay with that dryness. Because if dryness eventually gives way to the pure causeless joy, which is there in the background. That's another thing you can do. Who am I? What's happening now? Tune into the background. Here there'll be a stillness, just like over there. The more you tune into that, it's a very subtle stillness. Not the subtle body, it's coming from the causal dimension. When it strikes, almost like pure light, when it strikes the subtle body, it splits into colors of the rainbow. That is your subtle frequencies of essence. It's not the same frequencies as the body would, because those are duality related and related to circumstance. This is beyond circumstance, but you're just noticing that there's a joy in the background. That will be your lifeline. There's a subtle joy in the background. Even in the aridity, something is aware of arid. Something is aware of that dryness. If you sit with that long enough, you'll fall into more of that. There is a quiet, subtle bliss behind that. The I am, and then the I.